Right. I'm Felix Heuman from Lyhagen.
I'm Lyhagen.
And we're very glad to accurate urban 3D modeling. Now, 3D modeling is really an eternal craft. It's both cutting edge contemporary. And to the left, Emperor Justinian. And they offer to the Holy Mother of God and Jesus Christ, what do they do? Creating models of cities and buildings is really old. This is in the Golden Mosaic is in Hagia Sophia in Istanbul, and it's from the 10th century. But it goes way back. So this one is much older. This is 4,000 years old. And it's an Egyptian maquette of a house. And this was usually placed in tombs. People who were buried with like small miniature households. So, and here you can already see the elements that we also use. So you have walls, you have roofs, you have columns, you have stairs, you have openings and windows. They did color too. Here's another Egyptian maquette. It was about 4,000 years old, more detailed, and they worked found in the grave. So 3D modeling is old, broadly speaking. It is a 1,000-year-old tradition which transcends time. And there is something deeply human about it. So here you can see my oldest son, Florian, playing with his bricks and building blocks. And really one of the first things that toddlers do, as soon as they can move their limbs, is to start building things with their hands. It's a natural inclination. So it's sparked something we all share. It's both ancient and brand new. So, our story. If there is one feeling which accurately captures starting out as a 3D modeler, it is the feeling of general failure. If you've tried 3D modeling, you've probably been there, all of you. Because if you like things like this way, adapt as well. So, way back, let's rewind 5 years. This is 2013. We folded paper. This is a quaint little paper town we made.
The hot summer.
It's very hot.
Yes, I was sitting in the garden of a summer house, and I thought it would be expedient to do something with all the apples. So I 3D model. And the same summer, Felix vacated in Europe and visited Paris and Rome, and he came back to me with a drawing and asked whether it was possible to do this in 3D. And well, I said, I've made an apple scratcher, so why not a temple? So Felix actually Felix and his computer moved into my apartment for a week, and we started modeling this.
The first thing I did, it appeared that my computer was a bit dusty, so I come in. I wanted to dust it off, so I used your vacuum cleaner. And the first thing that happened is the vacuum cleaner sucked off the power button to my computer. so I had to start by disassembling your vacuum cleaner and trying to find the power button.
And we thought this model was quite good, but it was at the time very hard for us to do, and we constantly had to push ourselves to make this model happen. And we're actually,
because if you have very specialized applications, then there is no 3D modeler which can do. There are special Landskrona Commission. Landskrona is the city closest to Helsingborg, just south of here. It's 35,000 inhabitants, and I wanted to build a printed model of the city, about 2 square meters in printed size. Modeling this for a couple of years themselves, but it didn't turn out to be satisfactory. So we got wind of this and talked to them, and eventually, after procurement, they gave us the commission. And we regard ourselves as problem solvers. So 3D modeling is problem solving. Lots of problems, and it's hard to find solutions. And we had made some mock-ups and some proofs of concept. So we have printed a small part of a small city block. Come in, do come in. Yes, welcome, welcome. But we didn't know the full solution in fine detail. So we worked that out underways. And before we started modeling, we wanted to look at some bad models, or shall we say, unacceptable models, because there are lots of city models out there, and not all of them are equally good. So let's look at some unacceptable models and see what's wrong with them.
Okay, so we started to look for whether it was possible to auto-generate the buildings.
It should be said about automatic generation. It is the Philosopher's Stone. You want to push a button and have the whole city being built for you by the computer. So this is what you want to go by. So can we do it?
Well, it can certainly be done better than this, but this is an example that highlights all the problems, because from a distance it looks quite good, but when you look closer, it's completely unacceptable. The roofs are just a pile of garbage.
Real roofs don't look like this.
No.
Another example is from Stockholm by the firm Bloom, and here you can see a larger. This is a certain amount in Stockholm, and it's 3D mesh made from a point cloud. And here you also see some problems, because this is an indiscernible lumpy mass, and it quickly tires the eye. The underlying problem is that computers lack interpretive intelligence. They don't know what this point really represents. So when you zoom in, and the same goes for example, if you used Google Earth or something, it looks good when you look at maybe one or two city blocks, but when you zoom in, you see that the roofs are wrong, the windows, the balconies are sort of jaggedy and everything like that. Also, when you zoom out, it's impressive to see the whole of Stockholm in 3D, but the problem is you can't really read it. And there is much research going on within automatic generation, but there is no satisfying solution if you have high standards of quality. So automatic generation makes you unhappy. Here's a physical model of Hanover in Germany, and as a style study, they tried to work a little bit with colors, which is a good thing. But there is something sterile about this, and it lacks life. Here's Birmingham. It is obviously 3D printed, but they too have problems. They work more with colors, but the color scheme is not really thought through. And are these roads or are they waterways and stuff like that? So this model lacks units. Probably it's got Sweden's largest 3D project, but it's all in-house, so that it's not on display as far as I know. It's geometrically probably more advanced and correct, but we have a problem here too. If you look at this, the materials are quite cluttered. So if, for example, here, this part, what they've done is they've taken an aerial photography and draped it onto the terrain. And then you don't get distinctive lines between what is, for example, green grass and what's a road. So the problem here is geometry and colors are functionally not separated enough. It becomes a bit garbagey, and it also tires the eye. It's unreadable in a way. It should have been a map to our. A city model is not necessarily a good city model. A good city model is a craft, where you pay great attention to the details. I think sensible simplification is a good keyword here. A good model should speak gently. It shouldn't scream with lots of colors, but it should speak gently like a good storyteller. So, and here, by the way, is a watercolor we made a couple of years ago. Kom in, vill ni lyssna? Kom in. Om ni vill. Om ni har tråkigt så kan ni gå sen. Det är lugnt. So here's a watercolor we made, and which sort of summarizes a little bit of the things we've been talking about readability. So to our minds, this is extremely readable, and you can immediately tell what everything is. So this was a starting point for our model. Right. So, but what is a good city model then?
Well, obviously, first and foremost, it has to be empirically correct geometrically. We strive for a precision of about 1 decimeter or so. It should also be updatable because this model is commissioned by the city of Landskrona, and as you also feel at home, you should, if you live in the city, you should immediately recognize the city and recognize your house, for example. And it's also important to bring out some kind of
And as we said about the colors, should be neither too cluttered, as we've seen, nor too sterile, as we've also seen. Plain, untextured colors work best, which separate functions, yet unifies the whole. So, that means it should be read like a map, not like an aerial photograph. Maps are informative, communicative, and explanatory, and helps viewer interpret what they see. So think whole first, and make the details serve the whole. That is what makes a top-class craft. So, right, what was our challenge then?
Well, to construct this, we were posed with a couple of challenges. And the first challenge is to make the buildings empirically correct, a manual modeling process. We try to automate as much as we can, but at the very core, you need manual labor. So this is very labor intensive to do this.
If you have high quality standards.
Yes, and there are also some other challenges. It has obviously it has to be solid, so everything has to comply to that. And there are also specifics that pertain to the printer we're using. So we're using a powder-based Projet, or not we, actually Landskrona. We use a powder-based Projet 660 Pro. And it's a full-color gypsum printer. And
these things are big. You'll see a photograph of them.
Yeah.
I don't think they have anything like it out there.
So you have to take into account things like the print chamber size and how well it handles overhangs and how much detail you can put in.
So those were some constraints. So let's go on with the Shining City. What were our tools then?
And it has a very good inference engine, which really helps. But the Sketchup out of the box is, if not in pad, so it's rather primitive. So you have to customize it to suit your needs. And you do that either by external plugins, or as we do very much, we write our own tools.
There are 4 types of input, right?
So we were provided with 4 types of input from Landskrona. And the first input is a point cloud. This is only part of it. And the point cloud was classified. The points were classified into different classes. So we have the light green, and that's the class, and the dark brown on the ground here. That's the class. That's the class called ground. So this classification is not quite logical. Now we have the light brown, which is the building class, and that is where most of the roof are. And then we have the dark brown on the ground here. That's the class. That's the class called ground. So this classification is not quite logical. Now we have the light brown, which is the building class, and that is where most of the roofs are. And then we have the vegetation class, the unclassified layer, and all the roof points are on the building layer. So we only use these 2 channels. And then this is a 44 millimeter per pixel orthographic photograph, and that was invaluable. You need it in all kinds of situations, among other things, to be able to interpret the point cloud, but also if you want to ground types and generally just see what stuff looks like. We also got a digital elevation model, and this is not it, because Landskrona is basically completely flat. But you can see the old water tower on the top there, and that's outside of our model, so you can look at it here instead. And finally, we were provided with facade photos, but we also used postcards track. We had a track for ground types and vegetation. And finally, we have the roof and building structure. And we're going to go over how we process artifacts along the coastlines. And there are also quite a lot of artifacts, spurious artifacts on the ground that we have to remove. So we had to fix that. So we basically just drew artificial coastlines, and then we adjusted the vertices to adjust to this new coastline. You can see the result here. We also made very selective smoothing of the terrain. So we removed all these directional artifacts. And this is the output, razor sharp.
The heights have been slightly exaggerated.
Yeah.
Landskrona is not completely flat, but if you compare to other cities, it's quite flat. Here's another input track. This is ground types and vegetation. There's really lots of groundwork. So all this is 2D. So on top of the photo, ortho photo, and it's important that it's a real ortho photo and not a perspective like you get in Google Maps. And we traced out. We have about 10 different ground types. So it's like grass, gravel, sand, water. We have stuff like that. Stone, pavement, tracks, railroad tracks, and then also
extracted roofs. And that's not something you can do in Sketchup natively. So we wrote a rather elaborated tool set to be able to do this, and turned out to be a very fast and accurate process. So here we have extracted the roof planes, and from these planes, which are just 2D, we automatically produce very fast and accurate process. So here we have extracted the roof planes, and from these planes, which are just 2D, we automatically produce the solid making up the building. And we also have specialized tools for example, the chimneys. So we just select a couple of points, and then we get a solid chimney directly. And these details are very, very important for the model because it creates a sense of scale. So you can immediately feel the scale of the house by looking at these details.
yes, if you remove the dormer and the two chimneys here, you can't really tell if it's a large house or a small house. It could be large, but once you add the chimneys, you get a sense of detail. So that's important.
In general, the point cloud doesn't allow it. It's very. Here you can probably see quite a lot. And finally, we just color the roofs, and we use empirical colors from the ortho photo. And as you can see, we do not have any facade details because in general the point cloud doesn't allow it. It's very. Here you can probably see quite a lot of facade points, but normally we have no points, so we really can't do the facades. And, nevertheless, this is the output from one roof plane. So we get at most 4 solids out of this. So we have the roof.
The roof plane is up here.
Yeah, we get the
It's
building,
the input.
and we also get an optional cornice and just a supporting piece for that. Just roof overhang. That's also it's a tiny detail, but it creates a lot of life in the model because you get this shadow along the roof or just beneath the roof. So, and most city models don't have this.
And here is the Landskrona City Hall with the point cloud. You can see they mesh rather tightly. We modeled this in somewhat higher detail than the other buildings because the commissioner sits here. So here, this is where the model will be displayed. It will be displayed this summer or something like that. It is being printed as we speak. So we can't show you photographs of the finished model, but we can show you images of the parts. And we also have a sample part printed over here, so you can later. Right. So,
Okay, so the model is 1.6 meters in diameter, and the print chamber is, I think, 25 times 38 centimeters. So we obviously had to divide the model into smaller pieces. And these pieces are quite because we want to cut the model along the roads or in water and so on. And we're going to show you how we constructed one piece, and it's piece 11, and you can look at it here later. So we start by generating, at the top you see the polygon of the piece. And from this we automatically generate or cut out the from the terrain model. And it is automatically solidified in that process. And you can also see we got a hole in the terrain here. And that's because the digital elevation model cannot represent a vertical slope. And that is the place of the old church ground, and that's recessed straight into the ground. So we have to cut a hole in the terrain, and then we just insert the old churches are cut out, also with the help of the polygon.
So we showed you a picture before with all the ground types of the entire city, and this polygon acts as a clip. So we apply this pink polygon to the whole thing, and then this area for the particular piece is extracted.
Okay, and these are just 2D faces, and we need 3D, and that happens in the draping process. So we drape the various ground types onto the terrain. Then different ground types, they have a specific vertical offset to the terrain. So you can see the green is highest, and then we have stone, and then gravel, and so on. And this creates a geometrical separation between various ground types, and it's a quite nice effect actually. And then we just drop the trees down on the terrain to follow the undulating terrain. And then we paste in the houses. And since everything is modeled in the same coordinate system, it's just paste in place. So this is basically the model we export.
So maybe Anders has been working on the buildings for a month, not just these, but others as well. And I have been working on the ground planes or the trees and so on. And then we just take them from our different sources and paste them in place in the uniform coordinate system.
And this is then exported, but it is not exported as one single solid. This is maybe 2,000 solids, and we solidify them outside of Sketchup. However, we also need some tolerance between the pieces. So we create this tolerance solid, and then we just subtract that from the piece. So we have about, I think, 0.125 millimeters of tolerance between the various pieces. So there is some spacing in automatic process.
Great. So, and also after it's been printed, you need to do some color checking. Need to do some color checking because even though you have a well-calibrated monitor, things will not look. The printed result will not look like what you have on your screen. So you sort of bootstrap the colors, you print them, print a piece, and then you change the digital colors so that the printed piece looks like it should. So you have to do this a couple of 3 or 4 times to really fine-tune the colors. Each piece is then treated with color bond and wax in order to give it more solidity. So here's Anders at his computer. So this took many late nights, work hours, demanding their costly preview. Did I put this in there, Anders? No. I don't think this is appropriate. So, okay. Here is Stefan from Landskrona cleaning a test piece in the Project 660 Pro printer. So he's manually blowing off excess powder here. And then we can unbox the piece. Right. And it works like, a dry stone. If you pour water onto it, the colors come forth, or if you lacquer it. And the same thing is with these. So that's why you need to put color bond or wax on top of them to make the colors shine. And here is the first test print. Doesn't exactly look like this now because it's the first iteration, but you can get a feeling for the result. And it is being physically printed more or less as we speak. That's why we can't show you photographs of the entire thing, but we can show you renders of the 3D renders of the entire thing. So let's condense what we said into some battle-tested advice. Here is a 3D render of the entire välkommen igen, of the entire thing, which is we model it in scale 1 to 1, but it's printed in scale 1 to 1000. Discrimination is even better. What we mean by this is keep your master clean. If you need to do experimental work, do it in a separate instance of your modeling program. Don't put lots of trash into the master model. Keep it very clean. Be obsessive compulsive about your layers, your groups, your materials, and your names. Instance names, for example. Because if you're working with a large project, you really need that sense of order, because otherwise you won't find your way through it. Solid modeling requires discipline. Here's another render from the west side. This is probably the best overview of the model. On a tactical level, geometry should drive the visuals, not textures and stuff. So if you want a window, model a window. Don't paint the surface with a texture of windows. You can't do it, well, don't do it then. Master feature creep or self-expansion. There is this tendency within 3D modeling to just add another thing and another thing and another thing. And it's a double-edged sword. In a way, that is what drives you towards excellence. But in another way, for large projects like this, you need to keep one level of detail across the whole model, so that master feature creep. But most importantly, leave home. Do things you need to do. That's how you learn. This pioneer spirit is what unlocks excellence. And then, if we zoom out even more, here's another render, by the way. Landskrona in morning sunlight in the summer. On a strategic level, be the wise general, divide and conquer. Try to do the small parts first, work into the as much as you can, and then go. Planning trumps parameterization. There's lots of talk about parameterization in the 3D world. In our case, I don't think it would have helped a lot. It's better to do good planning, because discovering mistakes late is expensive. So solving problems is wise, but avoiding them is even wiser. Readability, moreover, trumps realism. We can maybe conclude by saying that an idiot can throw a rock into a well, but 40 wise men cannot get it up. And finally, a point because what is the point of doing making a model which is technically correct, but fails to arouse the emotions? Our ideals are things like readability, durability, and beauty. These ideals are timeless, because after all, what remains of us when we're gone? It's maybe not so much the useful things, but the beautiful things. Things worth discovering. So maybe we should revisit the process, and Constantinople even. Here's 5 years ago, our quaint little paper town that we made, and today we're here. We built a full city. And I believe it's safe to say we served our masters well. They're happy with the result. They see a little funny mock-up here with the Commissioner Pauline in the middle. And then you have Emperor Anders and Emperor Felix offering the city portal. And there's Christian at Landskrona as Jesus Christ. We also promised a shining city. So here it is, our shining city. Just a very quick render with Landskrona made out of pure gold. So to conclude, maybe we should say just a few words about us. What is polygon? I think this image sums it up pretty well. So to the left you have the St. John Cross, Selarhet in Swedish, or site of interest. It stands for culture, history, knowledge, stuff like that. And then you have the computer prompt, which stands for the necessary, but to some perhaps a little bit boring, technological prowess, which is things like things we do. And together, these things make up Polygon. For you who can't get enough of this and who want to hear more, you're very welcome to the Trimble 3D Basecamp 2018 in Palm Springs, United States of America, where we have been invited to speak about this project. And then we'll also show photos of the finished model, which will be done by then, according to plan. You're very welcome to visit us. You can visit us at our office. It's in Köpingen, just not very far from here, 20 minutes car ride. Or you can visit our website, polygon.com, to learn more and see more of our models. So we welcome collaborations, commissions, and co-workers. So if you want to maybe have a joint project with us, that's interesting, and you give us a call, or maybe you want to order a model, you're welcome. Ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, question.
Jag var med från början. Skannar ni in byggnaderna eller?
The question, thank you. The question was, did we scan the buildings? Well, we had 4 input types, and for the buildings, the most important input type was from the 60s, but it works really, so it's well established. It works really well. Gives you huge point clouds, but you cut them into pieces, and then we model 2D planes from that. Maybe you want to comment on that?
Oh, we used
Yes. So it's a drone, and below the drone they have a small LiDAR scanner, and it sends out millions and millions and millions of laser beams. And time from the beam is projected until it comes back, and from the time it computes, thank you, where the point is in 3D space. Yes, that's what we use, and that's what most people use, and that's what you have to use, really, if you want to be professional. Yes?
Do they take photo same time? When
okay.
The question is, did they take photos at the same time? The aerial photos, you mean?
Yeah, because this is color. The leader is no color.
There is laser scanning LiDAR with color. The points we were provided with were uncolored.
Yes, but you get the color from photographs.
Yes, the color was got from aerial photography, an orthographic photograph, which means that you could color the ground. The ground colors are. No questions? Okay then. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.